Welcome to the Breakup Recovery Podcasts by your host, Barbara Stevens. Discover the wisdom and remarkable insights of Barbara Stevens, breakup recovery mentor, author, and public speaker. Barbara offers programs and solutions for any breakup so you can turn your life around, create lasting changes for the better, and embrace life again.
Hi, I'm Barbara Stevens and I have Kathy with me today. Welcome to Breakup Recovery Podcast, Kathy, and thank you for being willing to share your story, your insights and ideas about your breakup. Let's start at the beginning of your relationship. How did you meet your partner?
So my partner, I met him at work. He was working for an aligned company that the two companies worked together somewhat.
So how long were you together for? Can you just paint a picture for me about the relationship and if you had any challenges in your relationship?
Oh, wow. Did we have challenges? Yes. We were together for about 10 years. He was a gorgeous guy. He was great fun, very loving and caring. But 3 years prior, he'd come out of a marriage where there'd been a child, product of their marriage, and the ex-wife was quite unbalanced and was constantly threatening the well-being of the child in relation to the attention of the father. So if the father didn't give attention to the ex-wife, then the ex-wife would threaten harm to the child.
Wow, did that impact a lot on your relationship with your partner?
It did, because she wouldn't, if we spent time together on the weekend, then she would demand that the daughter didn't see me. So it almost made it impossible for us to see each other, because she would demand that he had the children on the weekend, or her child on the weekend, and then she wasn't allowed to see me. But then there'd be instances where all sorts of things would happen, like he would take her into work, the child, which was completely illegal because of the safety situations. The child would see me and the ex-wife would find out about it, and then there'd be this awful screaming match. Yeah, just horrendous things happen. Like one time we'd been swimming somewhere and somehow my swimmers had ended up in his car, and I just kind of texted him and said, "Hey, I need my swimmers. I'm just popping around to pick them up." And the daughter was there, and the daughter got straight on the mobile phone, texted her mother, and next minute the mother's coming around trying to strangle the father. It was horrendous. My son and his daughter both ended up hiding behind furniture, terrified of this crazy woman.
So this woman actually used her child to almost dob on her father.
Absolutely. And that child now is 21 years of age. And, you know, if you ask that child, she would say she hates my guts, but she doesn't have anything to hate. It's all the indoctrination from the mother.
You weren't actually living with your ex-partner. You weren't sharing a home as such. So that was how the mother was able to put such strict restrictions on you not being around the child when the father actually had the child.
Yeah, and eventually I said to him that he had two choices, because what would happen was that she would ring him up and scream down the phone line at him at all hours of time and day, and he was living on his nerves all the time. And some of the threats that the mother made towards the child were horrendous, and even the grandparents knew about them. Like she verbalized these threats to the grandparents, and it got to the stage that he would be getting these screaming, abusive phone calls. One time we went away to the Sunshine Coast just to Noosa for 3 days, and she would ring up every night at about 10 o'clock and she would be just screaming down the phone line. And I had to say to him, please, if you're going to take her phone calls, we're here on holidays. I don't want that energy. I don't want her ringing endlessly all through the night. So you need to either take your phone or take yourself elsewhere if you're going to, answer those calls, because I'm just not having a part of it. And So whenever he was away having fun with us, me, that this is what would go on. And eventually I said to him that for us to go forward, he had to make a choice. He had to make a choice between his daughter and him and I. And he chose of his own volition for it to be him and I. And a lot of people gave me a lot of grief about making him choose between his daughter and myself. But I could see that he was living on his nerves. He was terrified. The slightest noise made him jump. And it's all because he was constantly adrenalized over what was the ex-wife going to do next.
Why do you think he couldn't put boundaries in place to tell the mother of his child that her behaviour was unacceptable? She couldn't bring him at certain times, and to put unfair restrictions on his access to his child. Why do you think he couldn't put those sort of boundaries in place?
I don't know. And really, it wasn't my business. All I could do was put boundaries on what I was willing to accept in my son and my own life.
So when he decided to choose you over his daughter, how was the relationship after that?
So the relationship between him and I and my son was great. We were really enjoying life together. The only thing is that he'd come out of the marriage with huge debts, and I assumed that they were debts from the marriage. But as the years went by, he just could not get rid of those debts, and there was no reason why he couldn't get rid of them. He'd sort of just constantly, once he'd clear a debt, he'd recreate it again, and it was debts on things that weren't assets. They were luxury items that weren't necessarily, important in life. So I could clearly see that we were never going to get ahead financially, and he was draining me financially.
So how did the actual breakup happen, Kathy?
Well, he had cleared his debts once again, and then within 3 months he had the same level of debt again. And I'm talking about a $15,000 credit card debt that he could not pay off because he didn't have savings, whereas 3 months before it was cleared. And I just had said to him, it was the second time it happened, that if this happens again, I will ask you to move out and our relationship will be over. So he said, fair enough. But I think because I wasn't angry, I just said it calmly and clearly. He thought that I was going to be a pushover, but he did recreate that debt again. And I just said to him, mate, you've got to move out. And if you aren't out within 28 days, I'll pack all his stuff up and put it in a shipping container. Yeah, so that was the end of the relationship. And I really wanted to maintain a friendship with him because he was a gorgeous guy. He just had bad boundary setting issues and could not manage money to save himself.
How did that affect you emotionally, that he actually didn't do as you asked? You set quite clear guidelines as to what would break you up, yet he still went ahead and did it anyway. So how did that affect you emotionally, knowing that he couldn't actually change, or he wouldn't make the effort to change to actually keep your relationship going?
Well, I felt like I wasn't, and our relationship wasn't important enough to him. So obviously, like he was almost like a money addict, but it was small time. I mean, sure, but the whole point of credit card is that you're constantly paying the interest. So you end up paying perhaps 10 times over for the price of the original item. And I could just see that we were never going to get ahead, never going to have the holidays you want, never pay the house off, never be settled down for retirement.
What was his response to your demands that the relationship was over?
Yeah, he packed up, he moved out, he was devastated, he was upset, people that he worked with said that he was crying and went into quite a state of depression, but he couldn't attach what I'd said in relation to the money to the relationship breakup. He'd almost dissociated it, and it's quite interesting. It's 4 years on now, and earlier this year, he said to me, I did everything to try and get you back. And I said to him, no, you didn't, because there was one thing that we broke up over and you didn't remedy that. And he couldn't even remember what it was about.
Oh, really?
He couldn't remember that it was about money at all, and his lack of ability to manage money and, save and get on the right side of the balance sheet of life. Yeah, and he's happy now. He's engaged in a relationship with another lady, and that's his choice and that's his life. But what just totally floored me was how he could not see, he just couldn't even remember the link between the two things. So yes, he had spent several years trying to get me back, woo me, buy tickets, take me places, buy me presents, and he didn't have to do any of that. All he had to do was sort his finances out.
Tell me, how did you overcome the breakup of the relationship?
Oh, Barb, I worked on it a lot beforehand because I think women grieve before the relationship ends. I think that's just something I've noticed that women do. It's almost like we process the whole what we're going to miss and how we're going to cope before it happens. And so when it happens, we're in an okay state, especially because you've got to go on, and I had to continue to run my own business and raise a child.
So how do you feel now about the end of the relationship?
I think he's a gorgeous guy. I think that obviously, there's just a few chambers in his brain that can't connect there, that the important situation, and I'm really wanting to find a guy who is my equal, and that if there is something going on between the two of us or in one of us that's affecting the relationship, that I or them will take ownership of it and actually work through it effectively.
So that's very important for you.
One of the ways that it really helped me get through the breakup was a few years before I'd read the book written by Debbie Ford called Spiritual Divorce. And it's all about how what really hurts us in the breakup is usually related to where we feel inadequate in ourselves when we felt we needed the other person. So it might be, we're really angry and resentful about the finances in relation to the ending of a relationship. And that's because we feel like we're incapable of providing for ourselves financially. Or if it's, the person's bitter about, they're not there for me anymore and they really don't feel good about going into social situations, it's because of our own social inadequacy that's going on. So I really looked at all of that stuff and what I missed in him and what I really grieved, and actually sat down and went, okay, I own that as a weakness in me, and really worked on it so that I become a more complete person, sort of a more rounded person.
How did you actually work on it, Kathy?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm a kinesiologist and I work with flower essences and homeopathics. And I've also got the ability to see energy fields. So when we focus on something that we feel inadequate about it, we see certain patterns come up in our energy field. And so I just use the appropriate vibrational remedies that cancelled out that pattern in my energy field. So it's kind of like, for instance, calcium as a remedy. Calcium, a person really needs the validation and reassurance of another person in the low frequencies. But as you keep taking it, you'll get to the stage where you don't need reassurance or validation from another person. So you become really independent, and it's like you shine and you feel really warm from within. So that was one of the remedies that I took. I suppose that I do know that he was my sounding board. I was using him to toss ideas to and see what he thought about. And after using that particular remedy, the calcium, I didn't need a sounding board anymore. I actually knew what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And I had the courage and the confidence to go ahead and do it myself.
How long do you think that process took?
I reckon that I was grieving the end of the relationship probably 18 months before it happened, because I could see where it was going and that I had to do something. And I know that if I didn't do something, that I would have got really angry and disappointed with myself, because I would have been the one that was suffering in the long run financially. And then probably 12 months after.
Did you have any physical signs, or was it all for you a knowing, a spiritual healing?
Well, I just knew that once he was gone, and I'd think, oh, I'd really like to talk to him about this. And I'd go, oh, okay, this is where I'm needing him, so I need to find the ability to do this for myself. Yeah. And one of my things that he had this great ability to just let go and have fun, and whether that fun was, throwing a frisbee or a ball, and I think as we get older we get a little bit serious, and people when they get together they just want to sit around and talk, whereas he was much more of an active fun. And so that was another thing that I really missed, that active fun. So I had to kind of get the oomph in me to initiate that fun and encourage other people to do to enjoy that sort of fun as well.
I think it's taken a lot of self-awareness on your part for you to be able to get through the end of the breakup.
Oh, definitely, Barb. But one of the things is that, self-awareness is really important to me. It's one of the major facets of my life, being aware of what's going on in me and what's happening in my interactions with others.
I'd like to thank you, Kathy, for your honesty and sharing your ideas and a different way of getting through a breakup, the self-awareness, the energy that you used, your spirituality, and thanks for sharing the length of time that it took you to get through your breakup and over your breakup. I think people listening to this podcast will probably identify with some of the things you've said, so thank you for that.
My pleasure, Barb. Have a great day.
If you would like to hear previous Breakup Recovery podcasts, visit barbarastevens.com.au. Connect with Barbara Stevens on social media with Barbara Stevens Breakup Recovery Mentor on Facebook and at You'll Be Okay on Twitter. Read further blogs, view webinar replays, and download your free ebook, 3 Easy Steps to Surviving Your Breakup, and much more at barbarastevens.com.au.